One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The Apollo 11 mission accomplished the near impossible feat of successfully sending 3 men to the moon, landing 2 men on the surface, and later returning them safely to Earth. This incredible achievement was made possible thanks to NASA's development of modernized technologies, ideas, and research methods, which enabled the flawless execution of the mission. The astronauts' bravery and incredible technology required to complete the mission impressed people around the globe and served as a catalyst for future space travel.
Overall, the Apollo 11 mission represented a pivotal moment in human history and remains a testament to the power of human innovation and the human spirit to explore the unknown. As humans continue to search the stars in the present and future, the legacy of Apollo 11 settling the frontier of space exploration will continue to guide the journey of later missions.
During the Cold War, as tensions rose between the USSR and the United States, the two countries remained allies in their fight against the Nazi regime in Germany during World War II. In 1942, Nazi Germany began developing a program to manufacture missiles that were made with forced labor in an underground factory named Mittelwerk and launched from Peenemünde, Germany to hit their targets in England and Belgium. The rocket in development was the liquid fuel-propelled V-2, which became the first rocket to surpass the Kármán line at an altitude of over 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface. This creation unintentionally launched a space race between the United States and Soviet Union.
As the V-2 program came to a halt at the end of the war due to lack of production and the regime funding it coming to an end as well, the scientists who developed the rocket and its technological capabilities at the time became prime recruitment targets for both the governments of the United States and the Soviet Union for their own programs of spacecraft. Even though they just supported a fascist regime, many scientists are welcomed with open arms into their new home in the United States and Soviet Union. Wernher von Braun an example, as he surrendered to the American military in Bavaria along with other key rocket engineers. Von Braun would go on to work with the U.S. Army in developing ballistic missiles and the famed Saturn V rocket.
Additionally, the Manhattan Project in the United States during World War II created a new type of weapon, a bomb that could use nuclear fuel to create nuclear fission. The resulting weapons could vaporize square miles of area and spread radioactive fallout around the blast. These weapons have a power that humans have never harnessed before. However, the nuclear monopoly of the United States ended on August 29, 1949, following the Soviet Union testing their own version of the nuclear bomb named Joe-1.
The launch of Sputnik 1 by the Soviet Union on October 4, 1957 generated fear in Americans and their government due to the proven capability of the Soviet Union to now launch objects into orbit around the entire globe, and most importantly, above the United States. This created the need for the United States to strengthen its national defense system, which also led to the creation of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA for short, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on July 29, 1958. This organization, funded by the federal government, worked towards developing and applying technology for space exploration and training astronauts for their missions in space. Yuri Gagarin broke the frontier of humankind in space. He was the first man in space aboard the spacecraft Vostok 1, which launched on April 12, 1961, and returned to Earth an hour and 48 minutes later. The Americans followed closely behind with their own mission, nicknamed Freedom 7 on May 5, 1961. Using a repurposed Redstone ICBM, Alan Shepard Jr. was launched 160 miles above the surface, and the whole mission lasted only 15 minutes and 28 seconds.
Following the first astronauts from both the Soviet Union and United States reaching space and having subsequent missions orbiting the Earth, the next frontier of space was being tested, exiting the spacecraft while wearing a spacesuit to protect against the deadly environment around them. Cosmonaut from the Soviet Union Alexei Leonov was the first human to do so in outer space on March 18, 1965, with a spacewalk duration of just over 12 minutes. Ed White, the first American to spacewalk, completed the feat 2.5 months later on June 3, 1965, for a duration of 23 minutes. At this moment, the Americans were catching up to the Soviet Union and had their sights set with the Apollo program to land on the moon next.
On May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy presented plans for the Apollo program to Congress with great prospect. The purpose of the program?
To achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
He also followed up his mission in Congress with a public speech in support of the Apollo program. His now famous speech on September 12, 1962, titled Address at Rice University on the Nation's Space Effort, where he proudly declared,
"We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard."
The Apollo program in itself was chosen to break the frontier of interplanetary travel by humans, with the goal of proving it is possible.
At the same time the United States developed the Apollo program, the Soviet Union prepared their own lunar program, with the N-1L3 rocket. This famed rocket failed every time it was launched, 4 times in a row. After multiple significant failures in the program, it seemed very unlikely to beat the Apollo program to land humans on the moon.
The Apollo program was gearing up to launch its first manned mission on February 21, 1967, the mission AS-204, or Apollo 1. Tragically, during a pre-flight test on January 27, 1967, with all three astronauts selected for the mission, a flash fire swept through the command module and killed all three astronauts. Ed White, the first American to do a spacewalk, Gus Grissom, commander of the mission, and Roger B. Chaffee, the third in command. Their escape from the spacecraft was prevented from a faulty escape hatch. This failure pushed back other Apollo missions to April of 1968 as changes were made to the 100% pure oxygen atmosphere inside of the craft and the escape hatch for safety.
Apollo 8 launched on December 21, 1968, which orbited the moon and sought for landing sites for future Apollo missions, capturing photographs like the Earthrise. Apollo 9 launched on March 3, 1969, to test the lunar module's engine and docking capabilities above Earth. And finally, Apollo 10 launched on May 18, 1969, to rehearse the actual moon landing that would occur in the next few months.
On July 16, 1969, Neil Armstrong, Edwin or Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins launched into orbit around the Earth at 8:32 a.m. Central Daylight Time, with their mission to be the first human landing on the moon. 2 hours and 44 minutes after launching from Cape Kennedy, the third stage of the Saturn V rocket reignited and burned for 5 minutes and 48 seconds, putting the command, service, and lunar module into translunar orbit.
3 days later, on July 19th, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin undocked the lunar module, nicknamed Eagle, from the command module where Michael Collins was staying. Neil Armstrong commenced the 30-second burn of the engine on the lunar module, which brought the orbit to 9 miles at its lowest, with the intended landing target of the Sea of Tranquility, which was mapped by Apollo 10 just 2 months earlier.
During the astronauts' descent, the lunar module's computer system overloaded 5 times, with alarms being shown to the astronauts piloting the descent. Mission Control said that it was safe to continue. However, the computer was guiding the lunar module to a boulder-filled field. Neil Armstrong took control of the module and flew clear of the boulder-covered area to a safe landing zone. At 3:17 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Neil Armstrong announced the safe landing on the surface after correcting course with the communication to Mission Control.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
The astronauts were given a rest period of 4 hours on the surface. Then the big moment came.
At 9:59 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Neil Armstrong descended the ladder to the moon's surface, uttering the famous quote as he took his first steps onto the lunar surface.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This iconic moment marked the conquering of the frontier of human space travel.
The extravehicular activity period lasted 154 minutes on the moon, with the astronauts venturing 300 feet approximately from the landing site to gather 21.6 kilograms of samples, also leaving a laser retroreflector used to measure the exact distance between the Earth and the moon and a seismometer. All of those instruments were not alone, as there was a silicon disc that displayed goodwill messages from world leaders and commemorative medals for astronauts from Apollo 1 and 2 Soviet cosmonauts.
After spending 21 hours and 36 minutes on the moon, including 7 hours to sleep and time to conduct experiments about soil composition and seismic activity, it was time for the Apollo 11 mission to return home. Following another burn to exit the moon's orbit, the astronauts were on their way home. On July 24th, approximately 44 hours after leaving the moon, the command module re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. The capsule deployed a parachute and splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean at 11:51 a.m. Central Daylight Time, where a team based from the recovery ship, the USS Hornet, was ready to retrieve it.
After a mission lasting 195 hours and 18 minutes, Apollo 11 had officially succeeded in bringing Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin to the moon's surface in the lunar module and all 3 astronauts safely back to Earth. This remarkable achievement marked a breakthrough in interplanetary space travel and exploration, inspiring future generations to continue in the quest for exploration and knowledge beyond Earth.
Undoubtedly, the Apollo 11 mission represents the pinnacle of human exploration in space, surpassing all previous accomplishments. Without the success of these missions and later missions in the Apollo program, the world would not possess the vast knowledge of our planet and the universe that we have today. By breaking and settling on the frontier of human space travel beyond Earth and her orbit, Apollo 11 produced a new era of space exploration that continues to push the boundaries of all human achievements. As said by Neil Armstrong, one giant leap for mankind, capturing the profound impact of this mission for humanity itself and its everlasting impact on the frontier of space travel, creating collaborative missions like the Apollo-Soyuz mission and the continued pursuit today of landing humans on Mars.